Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate you joining this morning. And one of our goals, so today was normally would be our normal cadence to be at the coffee shop. And since we can't be at the coffee shop, we've been doing these virtual ones for the last month and feel like we got the technology down enough to be brave enough to let community members come and go. So we're hoping to replicate as much of the environment we normally have at the coffee talks as we can. So anyone watching online can still register and join us. There's a link there and we'll go ahead and put it in the chat. But if you don't want to come on the video, you can still put questions in the chat, but that's the goal of this morning. So yeah, and Dane's doing some marketing.
Shout out. Yeah, they we may not be there, but they are open. So make sure to go support them.
I do.
Yeah. So how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Oh,
never better.
I woke up this morning pretty cold. I was like, man, probably should have clicked the furnace back on. It got pretty cold last night.
It didn't get as cold as they said it was supposed to, though.
No, I was watching that before bed, and it said we were supposed to just about brush 32, so I was brave and didn't cover my plants or anything.
Well, it was 55 when I got up at 8 o'clock, so.
Oh, that's good.
I don't think it got there. If it did, it came back up real quick.
Yeah.
So is anybody is this broadcasting live on Facebook too then?
It is. So I'm going to put the link how to join so people can register. I'm going to try to watch my email for those registration approvals. So
okay.
I'll try to pull that up now.
Too, so that if there's questions, they don't get missed.
Yeah.
Marlis, good job last night.
Oh, thanks. That was fun.
Marlis, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Dane. No, I thought that last night was a really cool thing. I thought it was a lot of fun. I just kind of went out on foot, so I stayed pretty much on my own street. I don't know if there were other displays going on along Lincoln Way or such, but you know, maybe next week people could submit a lot of pictures to me and I could put something together of other things that are going on. So we'll see. Kind of fun though. Very fun.
Oh, looks like John Hall's coming in. There you go. Yeah, we were a little bit gun shy about Zoom bombing after one of our city council meetings, so we made sure we had this locked down tight. Don't want any surprise visitors. Let me gotta unmute John probably, or I could just leave him on mute. That would probably be fine too.
Oh, spicy this morning already.
We said we wanted it to be more like the informal coffee shop time.
Yeah, I think we got that going.
Yes, I know Marlis had some questions that she was emailing in.
Yeah, I think one of the big question is this downtown project. People keep asking me what's going on. And then, you know, and obviously it's an infrastructure project with new sewer water lines and such. But people want to know what's already happened and what's ahead, like what's ahead even this week. So just thought maybe you guys could tell us a little bit more about what they've actually done and what's actually coming up.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit since I've had a walkthrough with Sean, a week or two. But the block by the courthouse was the one that was farthest along. So that they had done basically everything under the ground and were waiting then to do the paving and concrete on top of the ground. In front of, you know, between State Bank and New Cara, they're still doing all the water services and all of that there. And then they've started then tearing out the old stuff in the next block. So I set up my screen here. So the original plan was to do 2 solid blocks at once. So what we did was we delayed the second block of that first 2 blocks because it was right when COVID was about to start. And we said, well, and the tearing up of the concrete would have been about the same week as all the businesses shutting down. So we said, well, we don't want to totally add to the chaos right now. So we had them just do as much as they could in that first block by the courthouse until they were done there. And then they moved on to tear up in front of between J and K. So then with all the shutdown going on, the plan after that was when they needed to move on between J and K, they were going to go to the alleys and start doing those and then come back to J. So that was the original plan for this year. Because of the shutdown, we talked to a bunch of the businesses in that next block and said, hey, would you rather us keep going or save this for next spring? And it was almost unanimous that they wanted that to keep going. So we originally had not planned to do more than 2 blocks at once because we felt really strongly we wanted to contain it in the smallest phasing as we can. But in the current situation, we felt it was more important to go as quickly as we can into that next block. So the last update I got from Sean is they felt like they could be done up to Lincoln Way by the end of July. And so our hope was get through there where a bunch of those storefronts are. And so now we're having the conversation of, and we don't have to make the call yet, but basically what's happening is you run out of a place for a crew to work and then you have to make the call of where to send them next. So do you send them back to the alleys like originally planned, or depending on the situation on the ground, do we send them all the way north for that last block and have all of 6th Street done this season? So we're not fully sure yet with the final answer of how that's going to go, but we're continuing to monitor the situation to see what makes the most sense. I mean, ultimately, we want to minimize the impacts we can on our businesses, especially since we know they're hurting now. And my fear is if we don't do it now, which might add a little bit more pain right now if they're trying to do a soft reopen of some sort. But what we don't want is for them to be back to normal in 2021 and then tear out their streets. So that's why we've been talking about doing the places where there's the most foot traffic right now, and then saving the places like the alleys and the side streets, then they would get saved for next year. So we'll see. That final decision on where to go after they're done going up to Lincoln hasn't been made yet, but yeah, I think we're seeing the reason for the project because those old clay tile mains keep blowing frequently because they're super fragile, and I think that just proves the reason why we need to get those replaced because of how bad that infrastructure really is under the ground. Because I know when the project first came up, I was like, well, the sidewalks aren't that bad. You know, visually it wasn't horrible. I mean, it is over the last 10 years since I've been in town gotten worse. But yeah, that's the goal. Brand new sewer main, brand new water main. So it'll be set up for a nice long time. And it's pretty impressive to watch some of that work and to see some of it. So we put some of the videos on our Facebook page where Sean's like, hey, come follow up here. And I'm going, I don't know if I want to get that close to that big hole, but it's been pretty neat to see some of the work that they do.
I think we've been fortunate too with the weather to even be able to have these conversations about do we go further north or do we go to the alleys or the side streets. It's because we've been able to move so quickly because the weather's been good, and seems, I guess, Brett, I don't know if you can verify, it seems like there's been relatively few problems as far as things we've discovered underground.
Knock on wood. The weather and the surprises have been so far so good. But
So have you guys touched any sidewalks yet, or are those still okay?
yeah, so basically what they do is they cut about where the old red stamped concrete was, the decorative stuff, and they basically cut from there in, and they're doing then they tear out the street, tear out all the infrastructure underneath, put back the sewer main first, then the water main, and then as they go, they're tying those into the basements. Then what they're going to do is get that all graded and ready. They'll pave the street, and then they'll tear out the old sidewalks. So because of the fragile nature of the infrastructure, we were also afraid of the fragile nature of some of those building foundations. So that's why they're digging nowhere near those buildings. They're staying out under the street and they're boring then into those foundations because we did not want to move any of the dirt close to those foundations because we didn't want to cause any to crumble. So that's why those sidewalks are staying in place, because we're not going to touch any dirt under there. So then when they're done with the street, they'll tear up the old sidewalk and put new sidewalk down. So the limiting to the buildings will be fairly minimal for those accesses, because those sidewalks are staying in place and people can walk up and down that block. When they tear them out, people will be able to walk in the new street, and then they'll have bridging and things to get into buildings. So the amount of time that a door can't open will be pretty minimal, as in maybe a couple days, depending on how that goes. But that hopefully will go well as well. We haven't gotten to that in any yet, and a business that I'm affiliated with will be one of the first ones that'll have to have that happen. So I'll know how it's going to work. But yeah, anyone just joining us can hop in live and ask questions. There's a link in the chat on the city feed. If you're on any of the other pages, it's also feeding to. You might not see that, but on the City of Nevada feed, you'll see the link to get in here. And we also are happy to answer questions that you type. So that's good questions, Marlis.
So one more thing on the downtown project, Brett, will they be getting to the sidewalks this summer? And
Yep.
those things in front of the door, you still predict that in those blocks?
Yeah, so by July, the end of July, they're supposed to be done with street, sidewalk, everything from I up to Lincoln. And then what's after that depends on where the call's made to send the crew next. So it might end up going all the way up to M to get the whole 6th Street portion of this project done. And then next year would be alleys and J and K. But yeah, they're going to do the alleys behind of what they're doing now, and then J and K. So that's what's remaining. So there's the 1 block of 6, J, K, and those alleys. So yeah, unfortunately, it hasn't gone, well, fortunately and unfortunately. I mean, we gave a map to the community that said, here's our phasing and exactly what's going to happen when, and we've blown that up. But so far, I've heard pretty good feedback from people about the changes that were made there to make that, because of the situation that we're in. I mean, it's one of those things that for me, shortly after coming to New Cara, heard, that this was on the horizon, and it got closer and closer and closer. And so we've had about 10 years to be like, oh, this is going to stink. Well, now because of COVID, I mean, we already had to adapt to curbside delivery and mail and delivery. And so we as a business had to do these changes anyway because of the pandemic. So it's almost, I mean, it's almost been a good thing that the construction's happening right now, because we had to adapt to it as a business anyway. And I think most businesses downtown are probably in similar positions. I don't know about with Tom and his business, but I mean, the ability of people to go out and into these businesses right now is already minimized. So we might as well take care of both pains at once. Come out stronger on the other side.
Better the pandemic happened this year than next year, I guess.
Yeah, that would be real bad. Had we done construction one year and then get shut down the next by a pandemic. So I'm glad it's both at the same time.
Hey, Brett, Amber Olson just asked, can you tell us more about Highway 30 construction as well? How long will S14 and intersections be blocked?
Yeah, I'll have to look at that press release. I don't know if you or Jason have read it that closely, but basically they're resurfacing both sides. So they're going to do one side, have head-to-head traffic. When they're done, they'll flip it, put the traffic on the other side, and do head-to-head traffic.
Yeah.
So I imagine it'll probably be a lot of the summer, but that'll take.
So to stop any confusion about the Highway 30 work, this has nothing to do with changes to the S14 intersection.
No,
correct?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the long-term issue. Granted, DOT has sent us a letter wanting to talk again about the long-term issue. So once we're able to sit down and talk to them, I'm sure we'll have some community discussions about that again.
Brett, you look really excited.
Pandemics, Highway 30, let's just take care of all the fun at once.
Yeah.
They stayed in the car. You want to come see them?
Yeah.
Great. They're gonna drive.
Looks like Janelle made it in. Good morning, Janelle.
Maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, she had issues connecting for a while, and now I see it in here twice. So it looks like the second one's working at least.
Hi. Sorry.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Thanks for joining.
Yep.
And we've got a bigger turnout again this morning than we normally have at Farm Grounds.
Yay.
Anybody have anything else? Maybe throw some hard ones at Jason. He looks like he needs some hard questions.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just ask, are there any other construction projects coming up soon that might affect the flow of traffic around Nevada?
Yeah.
Yeah, not traffic that I know of. Yeah,
Right.
city-wise, ours is all downtown, and as far as I know, the state is just doing that resurfacing on 30. So
You do have the W Avenue project up north, correct? And
Yeah.
how is that project actually coming?
last I heard, it was supposed to be about done this week, so I need to get an update from Sean again. So
Okay.
yeah, that one was one where they prepped it in the fall, and then it with the concrete that gets shut down higher temperatures than you would think it does. I don't know off the top of my head what it was, but it was something like in the low 40s. They shut down the concrete, and so they weren't able to pave it. So now that it got nice, they're back working at it. And then then they can't do it all at once, so they have to do a bunch. Then they have to tear out the approaches and then replace those. And then it was raining, and so I know it got delayed a little bit this week.
It looks like the Burke project is moving right along. Are they on schedule as far as everybody knows?
Yeah, as far as I know, I think the schedule and the construction's been going well.
I've got a great view right now
Oh, there you go.
I do.
for another 6 weeks.
That every time I go by, it's like I knew it was a big deal and I knew it was a big facility, but then you see it and it's just
Big.
very, very large.
You might be muted.
Well, they're putting in parking lot now, so hopefully we'll have a clean street soon.
Yeah.
Any news on residential housing construction and new developments?
Yeah, I know that they've been working on some things. I don't think anything's final. They've been working with some land and whatnot, but John probably can speak more. I don't know if you know anything more than I do. I just know that there's people poking around.
Yeah, I mean, from the NEDC perspective, certainly the Cochler Freevert subdivision on the south side of town is something that we've been, pushing and working to get going, and hopefully this spring yet they'll be able to start getting some of that infrastructure in and getting that ready. In terms of other subdivisions throughout the community, I mean, we're working with a couple of different landowners right now and trying to figure those out. Working with landowners and developers to start to unlock some land and start to get some new housing going. But at the same time, we're also trying to tackle infill housing lots or potential redevelopments. So the house on is it Fifth Street that burned down, and they brought in the pre-manufactured house and put it on a basement. We're working with a couple of different organizations to figure out if that's an avenue that we can pursue to bring in some more affordable housing opportunities. And I say affordable housing, it's not going to meet LMI standards, low to moderate income standards, but it's going to be in that kind of starter home price range, trying to diversify the housing opportunities that we can bring to the community. And then at that same time, we've heard from multiple developers actually in the last couple of weeks looking at doing low to moderate income housing projects as well. So hopefully being able to bring in housing that really spans the entire spectrum so that we can continue to grow our community. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think everybody kind of hit the pause button for a moment, but now that kind of the weather's turned and it's sunnier days, I think people are excited to get back to work and start looking at these projects. So hopefully this year we'll start to get some pieces in place to maybe see some new housing break ground next year on top of the Cochler Freevert, which I think we should see new housing this year. So
Thank you, John.
I have a question. Cimarron Avenue. This is out here where I live. I live on Westwood Drive, but it does have a street that goes Cimarron, and it's like a dead end right now. And it's my understanding that the farmer owns. There was no green there was supposed to be, when this was all developed, that was supposed to be green space behind there. But I didn't know if they've got any plans to connect to Westwood Drive. There, that could be some more housing if we could get that farmer to let go of that.
I don't know if, John, have you had any discussion out in that neighborhood?
Where's that at? Let me look it up quick.
That'd be where the backside of it.
Yeah, the old Wilson farm and the
Oh,
pond
yeah.
behind me on Westwood Drive. So it would be west of that. It'd be the most west street in
Yeah.
Nevada.
I want to say, because I know at one point there was a long-term plan that included connecting Indian Ridge down into that neighborhood, but
Right.
off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly where that road theoretically could come in.
It was supposed to come out
I
on
think it
the,
was.
like if you come down Westwood Drive, if you could go straight, you could circle around to that Cimarron Drive,
Mhm.
right past, well, I don't even know, the policeman lives there now. I can't remember his name right now. And Wilson on the other end. But it's supposed to go, my understanding is the city owns that area because they remove snow and stuff there, but it's like a dead end right now. So the first plan was to connect that. So in case of fire truck or anything trying to get down here and get out again, so that's always been a concern.
Yeah, so I live in the other half of that neighborhood. If that road continued through,
Right.
we'd be able to get to each other.
don't
No,
think-
it's part of the consideration. So actually, interestingly, part of the challenge that we've had with development of housing is water supply and who's going to supply the water. The 93 acres that actually that farmer owns in this area between the farmstead and the remaining land is actually already within city limits, so the water isn't an issue. So it's probably one of the more attractive locations for a new housing subdivision. And that's about all I can say at this point, because I mean, truthfully, we don't have any land rights secured or anything like that. And I know that there have been conversations, but I don't want to put any of those in jeopardy, or all of a sudden, somebody sees this video and land prices go up or things like that too. I mean, certainly, we think that that's going to be a potentially good option for the community, but we're exploring a lot of options right now.
And I'm not sure they'll ever get across to the second division. We're in the first division. So
Mhm.
that's the second one over there. And I don't think there was big plans to go connect that unless it went along the railroad tracks. But here's what I'm talking about is just Cimarron Drive to connect to Westwood Drive on the south.
Oh, I see.
And that would still give, and I guess my big question, is that green space still supposed to be there? The farmers are still leaving it that way, and those people are all maintaining that grass and, whatever, they're planting trees on that and stuff. So I worry a little bit about that. If the farmer comes along and starts putting up a fence, then you're gonna have some landowners that'd be mad.
I think the spot that Diana's talking about is right in between Brandis's and I can't remember the other folks that live just to the south of him. That is actually considered a road. It's a shared, they kind of share a driveway there. Is that what you're talking about, Diana?
Right, there's, if you go straight, if you would just stop it instead of turning on Westwood Drive and just go straight, you'll run into a dead end. And the city police, I can't remember his name right now, he's a young child now.
Sergeant Brandis.
Yeah, so it's where he lives, right in front of his house on the south. So,
But it's not wide enough to be a road, nor is it
I guess I can't hear him.
wide enough.
Yeah, Jason, you're
Oh, you
really
can't hear me?
We can see you well, but your audio is super garbly, so I don't know if there's an issue with your microphone.
all I hear is
Yeah, can you sit closer to the microphone? That would help.
Is that better, John?
It is actually.
Perfect.
It was more like Charlie Brown, where you're like, wah, 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 wah.
the best.
Yeah, that road is not legally wide enough to be an actual road, but I've talked to Chris. You can't hear me again. Okay, well, I'm gonna quit talking now.
Jason, it sounds like you need some of that fiber.
Anyway, I would like to know if that green space is still allowed there or if they've taken that away. Since that farmer bought it after the development started, I don't know what happens to that.
Yeah, I'll ask about that. I'm not familiar with it
Okay.
enough to speak on, so I wrote it
Okay.
down.
That's all one question I had.
Do any of you guys know what might happen with the pool this summer? Are they going to try to get it ready? Is it going to be kind of, what's going to happen with that?
I'll try not to slide under the desk here. Oh, now she popped up there. So no, Tim and Park and Rec are being really good about monitoring recommendations. So CDC, and they're supposed to give some guidance to aquatic centers. So we're kind of waiting to see what comes from CDC and Iowa Department of Public Health as this progresses. Obviously, no, we need to make sure it's safe. It might not look like normal where there's hundreds of kids all climbing over each other. So it might be more limited in scope. So honestly, we just don't have an answer yet. But what we do know is they were supposed to be in their training about now. Obviously, we can't have all the new lifeguards in their training right now. So opening probably won't be by the May 30 timeline that they were hoping for. So opening will probably be delayed. It probably won't look fully like normal. But other than that, their Park and Rec says they are planning to have a season. They just don't know what it'll look like. And I think that'll come from the guidance we're getting from the state and from CDC about how to safely do that.
So what about your summer rec programs too? I mean, by this time you would have had your little softball, baseball teams established, who was on what team. You would have been having some practices and probably starting some games. Are you still hopeful for any of those things for kids this summer?
Yeah, the younger kids, 1st through 6th grade, I think it is, softball, baseball, that we do with the neighboring communities, that league got canceled for this year. So each community is looking at what can they do on a local basis that's more limited and safe. I mean, for obvious reasons, you don't want kids traveling from community to community in large groups, but maybe they can get small teams together to do some practices and eventual some sort of local scrimmages or games. So they're trying to work through that as well to see if there's a safe way they can do something this summer rather than nothing at all. So
And at least we could do something for the kids in Nevada. Maybe these kids are I feel so bad for them. They don't really some of them get it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and yeah, something, and that's my hope as well, and that's why we put out some new guidance about the parks, because what was out there wasn't crystal clear, so we wanted to make it more clear, but also reopen some things like the tennis courts that had been closed to give people healthy outlets right now outdoors, especially because so far the vast majority of cases have all been close contact indoor transmission, like packing plants and nursing homes and places where people are more confined indoors for longer periods. So outdoors is less of a concern, especially smaller games like tennis are naturally social distance anyway in small groups. So we were trying to reopen some things as we go. So I mean, we'll continue to look at basketball courts and those things that are remaining closed as we move forward. So our next goal is to watch what the state does, expecting there to be some changes in the state's proclamation around the May 15th timeframe is what we're expecting from them. So we were basically every 2 weeks we've been putting out new things after the state does, so that we review what they do, see what we need to change, put out some guidance.
And you may have no idea about this, any of you, but do you know how far, I know that Nevada, the Score Park, is a great place for all these tournaments that go on the weekend. And that's also kind of a revenue source, with people that come into the community. So how many of those have had to be canceled, and where are you at on kind of waiting on some of those to try to see whether they can go on or not? Do you know?
I don't have specifics. Right now, obviously all programming, basically from our perspective, we've said all programming is shut down until further notice. So I don't know how far in advance they've canceled things or what they're holding on to. I'd have to ask Tim for those specifics.
Yeah, that, it would be really interesting to know. That might be
Mm.
something to
But
follow
yeah,
up on.
I mean,
because-
they're working on, so one thing we asked is that and I mean, they were already working on it, so we really didn't have to ask, but what does it look like to safely reopen those restrooms out there? And they have some
Right.
equipment they've been waiting on to
Right.
safely do that with some foggers and things. So I know that's one thing we'd like to do is, I mean, obviously having clean restrooms available for people is also good for public health, especially if they're going to be out there. So we do want to get those open, but they're trying to follow, again, the CDC
Right.
recommendations, and that involves regular disinfecting. And so they were going to get a fogger they can spray everything down with quickly and easily.
No, I'm just hoping that sometime before this summer comes to an end, we see that ballpark and that area full of people again with some events going on, because it's always kind of fun to walk out there and talk to people from other communities that are there for tournaments and things like that. But if it can't happen this year, then we all know that's,
Well, and Marlis, one thing, I guess, kind of a segue into something is that I know will be happening, and I know we've kind of talked about it on Facebook too, is the runners,
right.
the Run Nevada race series that we're doing. That's still going on June 20th. We will do the Freedom Run as scheduled, not necessarily as planned. I think right now the conversation is kind of having a rolling start over the course of an hour. So that, our 50 to 75 is usually what we have roughly for attendance. So those people are spread out when they start, and it's over a 3-mile course. So Brett had a conversation with Story County Public Health, and they were on board with it. So basically, it's not going to be everybody starting at the same time. It's not going to be coming together and getting your pancakes all at once, but it's, go run your race. We'll still have the finish line set up. I'll still be out there playing music, try to make it as festive as you can, minus the people. And then, then they can grab their pancakes to go, and we'll have a contact-free starting area so people can pick up their race packets and not have to worry about, a lot of close contact with people. So, that's kind of the plan for that. And then the races after that, Lincoln Highway Dash and some, again, in some capacity. Some of this is going to obviously be dictated by circumstances as we go forward, but that, and then our Brian White Run Country 5K right now, we got that rescheduled for October 4th at the Nevada Cubs baseball field. So, a change of venue that I think will work really nicely for that. Again, obviously dictated by circumstances. Then the History Hustle on October 27th or 25th, whatever that last Saturday or Sunday in October is. So, yeah, I mean, it's that is something that will be happening. And obviously what that looks like will evolve as the year goes on. But we're excited because for a while there we didn't know if that was going to happen. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's
That's
mostly
great.
just being creative and thinking outside the box. So I've seen that all over the community, which is nice. People are thinking about how can we safely do some of these things. So like what Marlis videoed last night with the car parade, scoop the loop thing, and figuring, or the movie night that was out at Score Park. And so yeah, with the races, doing the metered start where only so many people are allowed on at a time to keep them spread out. So those are the types of things hopefully we can do and still have some sense of normalcy.
That's
Well,
neat. How-
and the Main Street organization is also working on the social distance effort right now, which I'm thinking we're going to be able to launch this week, but it might be next week. Very, very close to having everything finalized and ready to go. But that's going to be basically walking tours throughout the community, really taking in a lot of our historic assets, being able to go up to those spaces and scanning via QR code, and it'll lead you to a link with a description or an audio file about those buildings or that site, and having a concerted effort to have those walking tours throughout our community. So pretty excited for what that's going to do for not everybody's a star runner like Dane or the mayor. So, but for maybe the rest of us to be able to enjoy the community and be out a little bit, and I'm personally excited. There's a lot of history of the community that, being a fairly new resident, it's hard to get access to that all the time, and this is going to provide 24-hour access for anybody who is out and trying to enjoy the community. So.
And I like being able to take Henry's history lesson and get some of that info. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Can I also ask, is there a committee working on Lincoln Highway Days still, or is that kind of on hold? Or are you working as if everything will be okay by then and planning?
Yeah, Jason knows the answer more. If your audio works, you can take it. If not, I'll take it.
You need to unmute yourself though.
I'll give it another try. Oh,
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, you're good.
Got it?
okay. Yes, we are meeting as of right now. We are moving forward as if it'll happen.
So yes,
heard
they're
you
moving. So I'll translate for Jason. They're moving forward. Like the festival's going to happen, and they're planning to make a decision. Was it by June, for sure? But they
Yeah,
were-
actually, I'm on that committee.
Oh, there you go, Tom.
And,
There we go. We'll let Tom take it.
We believe we can get the planning done, even if we don't start till June. So we're really just waiting to see what, compliance measures and how much the state, will be opening up. And while I'm not on, also as connected to that, the rodeo committee, I believe, is still planning to move forward as a part of that whole celebration. But they're also waiting to see, what's going to happen with the state fair, since we follow the
Right.
state fair. And so if the state fair obviously moves forward as planned, we should be able to move forward with all of our activities as planned. So we'll be reconvening around the 1st of June to really assess that.
On June 1st, they are gonna decide June 1st. I don't know, probably earlier. VBS is sorry, my voice. The churches are all doing something for the kids. VBS, Vacation Bible School. I don't know. And the county fair and the state fair. They're deciding. So they'll decide if they have those or not. We'll see.
I think there's lots of wait and see.
Yeah.
And obviously the state fair is huge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Don't know what'll happen with that,
I don't know.
or football, but I don't want to talk about that today.
Yeah, right.
Brett, if there's no Iowa football, we're gonna have to have really long meetings like this to just, cry together.
Well, I said I'll consider it a victory if they can play to an empty stadium and I can watch it from my TV. That'll at
That's
least be
right.
better than nothing.
That
Okay,
would
that's
be
crazy.
fine. That's how I do it all the time, Brett.
Yeah.
Probably be a bad deal for the universities though, as far as that lost ticket revenue.
Talking multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It'll be more than Iowa State taking pay cut coaches.
So Sue Vandekamp wasn't able to connect in, but she did email me some questions. So I think, talked about most when we talked about Main Street. We talked about most of the reopening. So City Hall, they're looking at least bringing back reduced hours after the 15th. So that was what Rick had asked, that we wait until that point, mostly because they're doing social distancing teams. So they're understaffed up front. And then library, what we asked was for them to give a report to the city council on their phased reopening plan. And so Jason and Dane both got that in their packets for Monday night. So they have basically different phases they're going to go through that'll allow more access as they go through that. So the first will be, they'll be closed, but preparing what they need to do to then allow folks in, and then they'll allow some folks in on a limited basis. And so, yeah, that whole plan is in the council packet. So the community's interested in what the library is planning to do, they can go to the city website under city council and pull up the council packet for Monday night, and the whole library phase reopening report is in there.
Covered what?
Yeah. Jason really needs fiber. He disappeared again.
Dial-up internet will get you every time.
Oh, there he is. Now I see him.
I see him.
Do you have to tell your kids to get off the phone?
Let's see. And Sue also asked the coronavirus effect on the city budget. So we don't fully know the full impact of that yet. Karen Wright is our city clerk. is a wizard when it comes to these things. So she's been spending lots of time figuring it out. So one thing that helps cities in Iowa versus other states is some other states are more heavily reliant on sales tax, and in Iowa we're not. So we're more reliant on the property taxes, which have less less large swings. So hopefully our city budget won't have major impacts. We're watching, obviously, we're expecting water, that use maybe to go down. And so we wouldn't be surprised if we see the utilities have a revenue drop right now. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that we're going to have to take a look at, maybe reprioritizing things and all that, but hopefully won't be a super significant impact. But part of that's how long it lasts and how quickly things rebound too. Keep checking for more questions on the chat. I don't see any, so ask away, everybody.
I could share this in good and bad. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions.
Yeah.
How about an update on city administrator search?
Yeah, there you go. Good question, John. So obviously we've been at that a while, and the pandemic delayed that a little bit. So we did some virtual interviews of some candidates. Let's see, when was that? March, April. In April. See, I don't even know what month we're in right now. It was in April. So we did some virtual interviews. We were hoping to then do some on-site in May, but they weren't all able to come here yet in May because of their current organization's policies on travel. So we have put that into June. So knock on wood, June 4th, we'll do some properly socially distanced on-site interviewing. So, and then hopefully after that, we'll know what direction we'll be going. But we have a good pool of candidates, and I feel good about where we are. It just obviously delayed us a few months because we were right in the middle of the search when all this happened to us. So.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, I'll throw that out there too. So having the public safety director as your interim during a public health pandemic crisis has worked out well, because it's right in Rick's wheelhouse, and he's done a fantastic job of managing through this time. I can't imagine, and he's had to deal with so many things that we've never had to think about before. So he's done a really nice job navigating our city staff through all this, and that's been good. He's just a calm presence. I think it's probably the police background, staying calm in crisis and navigating things through. So, okay. So there's a question in the chat about senior posters on business windows. I'm not tied into that. I don't know if anybody else is.
Senior posters.
Okay.
No, yeah, I think
Can
I
you
saw.
guys hear me now?
Yeah, for now.
For now? Well, I got a different microphone now.
Okay.
We just got another question about the wastewater plant also.
Yeah. So that's a good tee off. So next Saturday, we will be having our coffee specifically about the wastewater plant and the utility rates therein. So we'll have our engineering staff and others here to talk more specifics than I'm able to. But the plan is moving along. We have our review next week on the 60% plan. So basically what they do is there's a 30% where they have 30% of the planning work done, and then 60 and then 90. So we're at the 60% planning phase for the facility. That they're going to go over that with. We have a council committee, Jason's on that, so that'll be next week. And yeah, plugging along, moving ahead. It's going to be the biggest project the city's ever undertaken, but that's not unique, because I think a lot of cities can say that. They're very, very large projects. Basically, to comply with the current state standards and the nutrient reduction that has to occur, the current plants just are too antiquated to do that. So our plant already is at the end of its natural life. And then you add the DNR guidelines on it, and then it can't comply. And then you look at future city growth, there's no capacity there either. So for multiple reasons, it's at the end of its life. I know we worked a long time to find ground, because having it landlocked in the middle of town, as town moves south, so then that gets gravity into play, because to get the wastewater north, you have to pump it all. So as all of our growth moves south, you're then expending energy to pump all that north. Where if you put the plant south of the growth, it just flows downhill, nice, easy into the plant. So that's why we have it south of town. And we worked for probably 5 years to find the ground down there. It was quite a while, and luckily we were able to find some good ground south of town for it. So I don't know if anybody has any more questions about that for this week or not, but that's the overview.
Yeah, from what I've seen in the plans, it's really impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing it go. I mean, it's wastewater, so you can only get so excited about wastewater, but the plant itself is extremely impressive. I'm pretty happy to be part of that team helping to get it off the ground.
And the way they're building it is so that it's more modular, so that as the community grows, there's capacity to continue to add on to it, so that we don't have to go through this again anytime soon. So that's the other thing, because I know the last thing I think myself and the council want to spend a whole bunch of money on is treating wastewater. So it's not a very glamorous project like Jason said, but it's very necessary. So we got to take care of it. And the current permit runs out at the end of, I think, 2023. So that's kind of the timeline we have to get it up and going. So Marlis disappeared.
Amber just commented about the senior posters, and I was gonna make the same comment earlier. Larry Sloan is, I think, who was kind of working on the senior poster topic. So I know he made a post in Good and Bad at some point this week about it. I can try to find it.
Hey, John, that walking tour, that was like 20 different locations, correct?
Yeah, so the intention is to launch with 20 different sites here. So going the social distance 20 in 2020, but really the opportunity is for this to continue to expand for years and continue adding sites. So the initial launch is going to have probably less than that, but building up to the 20 here this year. And the initial launch will launch with probably just one voice for the audio files, but our intention is to actually work with different folks who have been involved in historic preservation in our community, or are owners of certain historic properties and have taken great care of them, to really put their voices behind the audio files at those sites as a way to kind of pay homage to the work that they've done in the community for years, while also talking about the historical properties and sites that we've got in our community. So so the launch is really about, going the social distance, the walking tour, but truthfully, we've probably needed something like this in the community anyways. The Historic Preservation Commission's had the downtown walking tour, but this is gonna really take that and expand on that idea, add the audio files, and hopefully be a really cool thing that we can build on and add more to.
I'm excited to have that digitized. I think that would be really good, because there's a lot of people that come to town and look to walk around. And if they're coming through on a Saturday afternoon when a lot of the places where you can get the downtown walking tour maps are closed, it doesn't do you much good. So I think having it nice and accessible and mobile friendly is important. And then Krista Skaggs sent me a text message, so I'll go ahead and plug it. Main Street has been working hard with the library to do a joint program called Story Street, where they're going to go through a bunch of downtown and other community leaders to do some story times for kids. So on the Nevada Public Library page, you can find that group, and that's where they're going to put the videos. So if you want to see a really poor video reader, they had me do the first one, so you can go check it out.
Got another question from Mary Ann online. As far as paving, I think it's 270 up there. I don't believe we're planning on paving that. Nor
That's
do
a
I
county
think
road.
nor do I think there's any intentions on putting any fiber out that way, unfortunately, right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I know, speaking of fiber, they've been talking to Sean Cole about all of the phase, like the actual details of the construction and phasing. So again, we need to get an update there on where that is, but they're moving full speed ahead to get that installed. Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
No.
Okay, well, I guess instead of sitting around and staring at each other, we can probably end this week. But yeah, I'm glad this worked out. I think it definitely makes me feel more normal. The same folks we'd like to see at the coffee shop being able to talk. So
Kind of like the
Yeah.
coffee shop.
yeah. So next week, like I said, we're going to do the one on the wastewater plant and utility rates. And then I know MetroNet wants to come back and do one about details regarding installation and what it means to homeowners on a detailed level. So that one's not scheduled yet, but it'll be coming up. So what we'll probably do here for the next few weeks is, it's been working well, we'll probably keep doing some more topical themed ones, but we want to keep doing the open ones like this with an open discussion. I think that's helpful. Let us cover a lot of topics. So
Wow, we're up to 37 viewers. That's the most we've had all day.
yeah. So maybe we should keep talking then.
Well, I did just share it in Good and Bad a little bit ago, and at least seeing if anybody had any questions they wanted to ask on there.
Yeah, I'm not watching that feed, so you'll have to let me know if anyone
Yeah, that's
types a comment there.
Nobody's commented so far, which is
Okay.
bizarre.
That's good.
It might,
Yeah.
it might be.
Oh, here's some questions. Let's see.
Don't you love it when you're in the town, you can text the mayor and ask him questions? Imagine that in Des Moines.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
and then it's hard because it co-streams on the mayor page and on the city page. So if I don't want to miss questions on one feed or the other. So I was trying to pull up the other feed. I'm like, oh, there's some there, but Jason already got to it. So thanks, Jason.
All over. Good job, Jason.
I'm glad the technology works out well. We've learned a lot of new skills in the last few weeks on how to make all this happen. So
Well, and Brett's too humble to brag about it, but I don't know the first thing about Zooms. He's been setting up all these meetings, so props to the mayor on this. Great job. You are a better millennial than I.
I even can do it. So when you get old, you have to learn this stuff.
yeah. So anything else new NEDC wise, John?
No, we've the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, we've been in a lot of crisis communication mode with our businesses to ensure that they're getting what they need in order to stay open, especially our essential businesses, which a number of our large manufacturers fit into that category. So from a business perspective, I think most of our businesses are continuing to operate and continuing to try and find ways to operate safely while protecting their workers. And then with the reopening, it's been a lot of conversations with folks to not only how do they protect their workers, but now how do they protect their customers. And I've been really impressed with the business community and the way that they've done what they needed to do to make sure that they're protecting the community. For a lot of them, they've decided in some cases not to open, walk-in traffic, things like that. They've made those decisions as an individual business, and I've been very impressed with the tough decisions that I know they've had to make in doing that. Then from the NEDC perspective, we're chugging along. We've got lots of big things that we're working on. We talk a lot about housing. That's probably first and foremost at the top of our mind. But there's been a lot of prospect activity and conversations around that too. So I'd say things are good. Things are looking up, and I'm hopeful to have a really strong remaining 2020 with just kind of a blip in Q2.
Hey,
And
Brett.
one thing too with that with businesses is knowing that there's a state and federal programs out there, there might be some gaps in what those are able to do. So if you are a business owner and you have some concerns about that, let us or let John know. And we ask NEDC to kind of keep the ear to the ground to see if there are gaps between the state and federal programs that the city could help bridge to keep our businesses viable.
Keep going.
So we don't want to lose anybody if we can prevent it.
Brett, Amber is asking for an update about the field house.
Yes. So Fieldhouse, the plans are still wanting to move along. So with that, we were planning to unveil a community-wide capital campaign of a couple $1 million right now in April. So obviously now is not the time for a big capital campaign. So we've hit pause, which probably will delay that project a year or whatever it's going to end up being. But the plan is as soon as things start to resume to normal, we do want to continue to have those conversations to keep that moving along. But yeah,
It's
unfortunate timing, but
tough
it
to
happens.
fundraise in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, especially one that large. So
That being said, I guess we could brag up the fact that virtual 5K got 150 registrations, which is easily the biggest race Nevada's ever had. And I think 125 or so actually reported their times. So that was cool. And a lot of people just walked it, but
one raised ballpark around $3,500 probably for the pandemic relief fund at the foundation. So that was really good. And want to plug Burke for being the title sponsor there to cover the expenses of it. So then everyone's registration went right to the foundation. And then Almaco making those custom medals right here in town. It's really, really nice touch. Folks enjoy that. So we're really thankful that they're supportive.
Yep.
And Marlis's internet went out. So again, she's going to need fiber. Man.
Yep, same neighborhood. I'm using my phone for internet right now.
I am using Colo telephone right now
Yay.
until I'm so I have to give it up.
Oh.
Move a
I'm just
block
glad
out.
mine's hanging in there today. Sometimes I pop in and out too, so it's hanging in there. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be a nice, beautiful day. It looked like it was supposed to be. Mid-60s. I'll take it.
I've been sitting out here the whole time. It's a bit chilly in the shade, but
Yeah.
I'm surviving.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, I'm not seeing any other
Okay.
comments. Anybody have any other topics you want to chat about? Okay. Well, I appreciate you all joining. It's been a good
Thanks for
event. We'll do it
hosting.
again.
Yeah, thanks. For
Maybe in person, hopefully in the next couple months, but if not, we'll do it this way. So I think what we'll continue to do, it's the second Saturday was normally our one at the coffee shop. So we'll plan to at least do this format for those as we move forward.
Awesome.
And thanks for everybody watching online. There's quite a few in there, so that's good to see.
Absolutely.
Able to cover a lot of topics. I just like we're able to easily get some good details out that folks have questions about.
Mm-hmm.
This way. I think that's been really valuable. We've had a couple thousand views on most of these videos, which is crazy. So
It's
Nice.
important to
The
get
information.
people that don't usually come either, it's good.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another
And I know Jason and Dane both, and myself. I mean, anyone who's run for city office hears we need to communicate better. So this gives
Well,
us the pandemic's forced us to learn a good tool to do that.
Well, it's been tough. It's been tough too to just, with everyone having all their different activities, their conflicts and things. So with having less conflict, to tune in, and it's been nice to be able to have more, personal conversations with the community.
It's been good.
Oh, we're getting some more things in here. Marianne Ryan said the medals and t-shirts are really cool. Here you go. Here's a shirt. Getting compliments before because of the format they participated. So yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have to do more virtual ones in future years. I think it was neat. We had people from, I think, 10 United States and 1 other continent. We had somebody in Northern Ireland register. So we were a worldwide virtual 5K from Nevada, Iowa. But yeah, that was good. Yeah, transcript. We weren't planning to transcript it. However, the video is going to post, so you'll be able to rewatch it at your leisure.
It's good.
And Dana already got to that.
I was typing that right before you said that.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and call it a morning, but glad you joined us, and we'll see you again next time.
Have a good
Perfect.
week. Stay safe,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.